What is going on, RotoGrinders? This is Dean filling in once again for Stevie. He's still on his little siesta. He's knocking out the NASCAR coverage, the Counter-Strike, and things of that sort. He'll be back soon enough, but I am filling in here at the morning grind once again. And, again, with the absence of a lot of sports going down, we are just having a lot of DFS personality conversations. And without further ado, let's bring in our contestant today. It's Ricky Sanders from DailyRoto. Ricky, what's going on, dude?
Nothing. The same thing that's been going on every single day since this started. I'm sitting behind my computer talking to other DFS friends.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned that, and it's funny because I've done like 4 or 5, 6 of these already, and you're the first person I don't really know. Like, I'm aware of your existence. I know you from Twitter. I've slipped in your DMs probably once or twice, casual conversation strictly. But I don't know a lot about you outside of for a little pre-show preparation. I did like a deep dive in your Twitter, but I'm happy to learn about you.
Yeah, you're probably the only one, but I'm happy to be here.
How is quarantine life? I know a lot of your tweets were quarantine related, so we're holding up all right. I think you're in the Chicago area. Is that correct?
I am in the Chicago area, and there has been a little bit of excitement in the fact that I live in an apartment building and my brother just moved in this week. So at least there's been something different. But otherwise, I mean, I'm sure a bunch of the DFS peoples have had the same experience that I work from home as is. So of the people who have been affected, mine has been minor compared to others. So I kind of feel for others, but for me, my routine really hasn't changed too much other than you can't see too many friends in person.
Except for the fact that now you're like a KBO expert.
Okay, so from that perspective, yes. If you would have told me a year ago that I would ever turn on a KBO game, let alone be playing daily fantasy hardcore every day, I would not have believed you. And now I can tell you half the names in the league. So that has been a shocking turn of events. That's the M. Night Shyamalan, of my life.
To be fair, you can just say 4 names and you got half the league covered, I suppose. You could do it that way. So I'm curious, are you waking up at 4:30, 5 o'clock? Are you staying all the way up until? How does that affect your schedule as far as making KBO lineups? Because I know you're making KBO lineups because I saw you banked 50K the other night. Congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you. And I've always been more tilted towards the single entry and 3 max and those sort of things. For football, I have picked up the MME and, occasional baseball nights. If I feel like it, I will do it. But for KBO, I don't want to wake up. For me, at Central Time, most of these games start at 4:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing mass multi-entry. So I've been waking up about a half hour before games just to make sure the guys in my single entry and, 3 max are still in the lineup. And there's been a bunch of nights where I haven't been able to go to sleep. So we'll talk about how I got started in daily fantasy. I was doing a job where I was working at the ass crack of dawn. And so I would work, go to bed, and have a second day. And I'm basically just back to that schedule where if I get, if I pick up a Twitch stream and I get, so watching games, all of a sudden it's 7 a.m. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm not going back to sleep for a while.
So, yeah, it's funny you mentioned your jobs because one of the tweets I was talking about, one of the tweets I kind of wanted to talk about was the 5 jobs you previously had. And I'm guessing the ass crack job was one of those sales associate jobs. Is that correct?
Yeah. So out of college, I was selling basically sports tickets and hospitality packages. Did not like it. It was basically like a job where you had to make 100 phone calls a day, and I quit it. Yeah, I really could not stand having people listening into my phone calls all the time and see what I was doing. So I was in between jobs, and it just so happened the family business at the time was tortillas. I don't know if you're familiar with Mission tortillas, like Mission tortilla chips, Mission dip.
I think I use them for wraps. Is that the same company?
Yes, Mission Wraps, exactly. So the way that worked was you own a territory, and any territory in any grocery store in that territory you would deliver to. And so my dad owned a portion of the suburbs, and I needed a job. So he's like, well, you could learn the business, and once you do that, you could end up potentially managing this route. So I decided after, doing phone calls that I was going to deliver Mission tortillas at 4:30 in the morning, become a delivery driver, learn how that worked so I could be, the business guy behind it. And as I was doing that, I realized it was boring as hell also. So I started to turn on SiriusXM Fantasy at 5 in the morning and just listen to it throughout. And it just so happened probably a year into it. I don't know if you remember the show Going 9 Baseball.
I didn't have a Sirius until not too recently, but I was thinking like Fantistics was like an early Sirius show. But
yes, I used to listen to that too if I ever had to be up on a Sunday. But it was like Dan Strafford, Joe Pisapia. It was like their first show on Sirius, and they one Saturday morning said they were looking for writers. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I've been listening to this forever. I've always thought I could do it. Like, I'm going to give it a shot. And I sent my resume. I was a sport management major in college. And just so happened, they said, okay, you're going to do an NL only segment, every week. And that was how I got started. And it kind of just went from there, strangely enough. During my tortilla route, which, by the way, became of nothing, my dad ended up selling it.
Well, there you go. But I'm glad they're still making them, though. They're pretty good. I buy the Mission every once in a while. I'm a sucker for the wraps.
Yeah, well, I had a bad manager during that time. There was like a regional manager who would go to your stores and like see how you've done and would always bitch about us. So like I left a bad taste in my mouth. So I'll try and buy other things but Mission, but they're really good, to be fair.
Well, let's walk it back for a minute. Growing up, you grew up in Chicago as well, or did you grow up in Indiana?
No, the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, so born and raised, basically. You went to Indiana College, is that correct? I mean, I was on your. I was stalking you on the internet today. I wanted to fully prepare for this conversation.
Yes.
Why Indiana? Why are we going to Indiana?
So I was a sport management guy. Knew I was going to be a sport management guy. Thought I was going to be covering sports. I was going to be a journalist, right? I was going to work for the school newspaper. I was going to cover the made sports. And so I wanted to go somewhere that had good athletic programs. And basically the good athletic programs across the nation that had great journalism schools, I got rejected. So it was Indiana by default. It was my fault. I didn't finish my, it was the whole, what do you call it? Whatever it was, your application to get into Florida. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word, but I didn't finish it. And so it was my fault. That was where I really wanted to go. But I got an email like after it closed saying like, you actually never completed this. And I thought I did.
You want to be a Gator?
I did. That was my number one priority. I was going to go visit as soon as I got in, and I got a letter like, look, you never completed this application.
I remember that they cost like a couple $100, if I recall correctly, as far as the applications. Maybe that's what it was. I personally just applied to one school. I remember, hey, UCF. I'm rocking the hat. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
But this isn't about me. Why am I talking about UCF? We want to talk about you. In high school, did you play sports?
So I tried out for freshman baseball, and I was overweight, and none of the coaches knew me. And like we played rec ball, and I was an all-star over like 5 of the guys who had made it. But I had they gave you like 5 minutes in the cage, and like I hit a bunch of ground balls, and that was all they ever saw of me without knowing me. And so I didn't make the freshman team, and like even like half the team was upset with me, a bunch of my friends. So that was as far as I got in athletics. No, I didn't play sports.
You're not clutch.
I thought I was good, and I guess 5 minutes in the cage wasn't enough for a pudgy freshman in high school.
All those ground balls. You didn't learn about launch angles back then?
We didn't have that yet. Had I known, I would have taken the Luke Voigt school of thought and started uppercut swinging.
There you go. I mean, you'll definitely get a bench spot for that. Like, you need a pinch and homer or something like that. The Adam Dunn deal, either bang one out or walk or strike out. All right. College, do we regret Indiana? Indiana was good times?
No regrets about Indiana. Indiana was some of the best times of my life. Took 4 years, only 4 years, which in my family was a short time to graduate. My brother took 5, so happy about that. And yeah, I loved every second of Indiana. I didn't end up doing the whole journalism thing though. I pledged a fraternity, and then journalism was completely forgotten about. Who had time for that when you were partying?
Yeah. What was the fraternity life? Give me a nugget or two from fraternity. What were you like in a fraternity? A disaster?
Yeah. Completely different than I am today. Let's put it that way. My fiance has said a bunch of times, like, if you were like your stories, this never would have happened.
Yeah. What would you say to 20-year-old yourself or 19-year-old yourself? You wouldn't talk to 19-year-old yourself.
Yeah, 19-year-old myself, I probably wouldn't. My sophomore year of college, I didn't leave the dorm room very much because we were partying all the time. We were using some drugs that are now legal, but were not legal at the time. And yeah, that was it.
Use your own imagination on that. Can't imagine what you're referring to.
Yeah.
All right, so we get out of college, and like, yeah, it's. But you said you changed your major, like you're going to be a sports business person, and you're not like, using that for anything. You just sort of get into the family business. And I think that's a lot of people. And that's something you don't really realize when you're getting to college is, you don't always apply your degree. And like, you're not necessarily, unless like you're going for like to make a doctor or like a teacher or something super specific. At least that's my experience. And my experience, a lot of people I know, but yeah. And first job out of college is not very romantic. I basically had a similar experience. I did the same deal. I was doing telemarketing for like a month, and that is miserable. I feel so bad for the telemarketers out there. I try to be as polite as possible when I get one on the phone because I know the struggle.
Same.
but just nobody wants to talk. I don't want to learn about the power outages or whatever. So I'll take my chances.
So I never forgot about the sport management thing. Like my first job was sports related. We were selling hospitality to like golf events. Quit that, and like I said, like I was still listening to fantasy because I loved it. I've been doing it for years. And after that job, I did end up back in the sports industry. I was selling hole-in-one insurance. So if you've ever like played a golf tournament and you see like if you get a hole-in-one on this hole, or if you watch, it was really contest insurance. If you watch basketball games and the guy is shooting for like 50 grand in tuition, there is someone insuring that.
Yeah.
So there's an insurance company that the school is paying a flat fee, and then the insurance company is actually paying out the 50 grand or whatever it is if the guy makes the shot. Same goes for hole-in-one insurance. And during that time, I met a guy who worked for the company who was a professional poker player and knew the guys who were starting the site Fantasy Draft, and knew that at that point I was on the radio doing content and things like that, and made that introduction. So I still was doing sports, and from there was where I actually got my first daily fantasy job.
I'm curious. I want to talk about that in a second, obviously, but now I'm curious. You mentioned this insurance. Is it part of the insurance deal, like to pick out the most unathletic person in the crowd? Like you're obligated to pick out this person's like 70 and like on their last leg, and it's like let's throw them out there for the halftime shot. Is that written up in the thing, or they can pick anybody?
So yeah, at least for golf, there are different odds for like if there's a pro, if there's our expected pros there, taking the shot versus your average Joe. There are different ones, and I would assume that most of the deals, I wasn't behind them, but you needed someone who didn't have high school athletic background for it to be those odds, or else you had to pay a higher premium because obviously someone with athletic background has a better chance.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I can't remember the specific situation, but you probably do since you're in the industry. But what that did happen, like somebody that had a high school background or a college background made one of those halftime shots, and they rescinded it. They took it away from the person, and it was come on, man. Like, well, I guess it was an insurance loophole, I suppose.
Yeah, and there were people who did that for hole-in-one, by the way, too, who like said that like two different guys hit it on the same tour, and there was a guy, part of the package with, at least with some of the lower payouts, like below 50 grand, was you just had to have someone watching who was in contact with the company, and it could have been someone from the course. So if he was in on it, they easily could have scammed him.
So you were talking about your next step in the industry, and I assume this is a season long, right? This is not DFS just yet.
Yeah, I was playing some DFS, but it was mostly season long for Roto experts at that point is where I was. Yes.
Okay, and then as far as DFS, when did you discover it? Do you remember, give or take, as far as what year?
It had to be prior to when I started with Fantasy Draft, because by then I was playing and I think I had like one decent win by then. So it was probably 5-6 years ago was when I would say 6 years ago is when I discovered DFS. And it just so happened, like I think in like a $33 tournament, I had hit one big win before I was getting introduced to the people who ran Fantasy Draft.
Well, that's a good sales pitch right there.
Yeah, it was perfect timing.
Yeah, is that like the moment where you said like this can be legit, this could be a thing I can latch onto, or it was further down the road where you said, well, this DFS thing's for me and I can make a living out of it to some degree, if just from the content perspective, also from the playing perspective? Was that the moment, or I suppose you're thinking I'm a one-hit wonder, or just kind of let's see how it goes, that kind of thing?
So I thought for a while that yearly fantasy was it, but once daily fantasy came along and I had a hit and I started seeing like all the money that was there, I started realizing that where the money is where you want it to be. So I think the moment I had my first big hit was the moment I realized that daily fantasy probably is where I want to be. And soon thereafter, like this daily fantasy site was starting, they flew me and coworkers out basically for like a full 5-star experience to see if we would, get involved with the site, to the point where we sat courtside at like a Charlotte Hornets game. We went out for like an incredible dinner. And once I had that experience, I'm like, okay, this is definitely where the money is. This is definitely where I need to be. Like, if they want me, this is where I'm going to be. And so when I started a fantasy draft, that was kind of where the light turned on.
How long were you there for?
Like 2.5 years. I mean, I was there for a while doing their content. I did videos with London Fletcher for a while. I did videos with some of their other athletes. It was an incredible experience to go from selling hole-in-one insurance to, recording videos with Hall of Fame football players. And I mean, the first time I met London, I was insanely hungover. It was the second time I visited, and there were some guys who said, okay, we're going out the night before. And they even joked with me, like, you need to get some sleep. You're going to do like this photo shoot the next morning. Like, we need all these pictures for you in our content. And we went and saw Twista at a bar in Charlotte till about 4 a.m. I had to be there at 6 a.m. So the first time I met London, I was on about an hour and a half of sleep, still drunk, and had to do a photo shoot.
Well, there you go. What, did you point to the scoreboard and say, look, here's look at I banked this $33 contest. You should know who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care.
Exactly.
Good dude, London Fletcher?
What was that?
Good dude?
Oh, really good dude. I mean, he was one of the nicest people ever, and he had no reason to be nice to me, especially with like how I came in there smelling and looking and stuff from the first. I made an awful first impression, and he was still insanely nice.
So how do you, I'm curious, and obviously going forward as well too, it gets trickier and trickier, and like the more and more you play, I would imagine you're increasing your buy-ins, like the more successful you're getting. The balance of putting out content and making lineups, and how do you juggle that?
So for me these days, like, I don't create my lineups until I've fully done the research for content. So they kind of go hand in hand now, especially if you're not doing like MME. You could really revert back to your work, and as the industry perspective changes over the course of the day and you get the feeling like people are going to be on this guy or that guy, you can just revert back to like, look, this is what I found in my research. I'm going to trust it. So I found that content actually helps me. And on days that like I have days off and I play daily fantasy, I don't feel as prepared.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like the days where I'm concentrating more as far as content, or like I'm more locked in, I tend to do better as well. And
Yeah.
I guess also depends upon when you're delivering that content. If you're delivering that content in the afternoon as opposed to delivering it all the way up the lock time, that makes it really tricky as well too. And I guess at DR, most of your work is done within a couple hours of lock.
So football and basketball, there's work to be done before lock, right? Because there's inactives, we have to adjust the projections. And basketball is the big one where the projections have to be adjusted every 3 seconds. It's gotten to the point where like I won't play more than one lineup on days that I'm adjusting the projections at the back end for DailyRoto, because I don't want my play to suffer. And like I would be doing a disservice if I didn't go to the projections and make that adjustment before I did mine. So you just don't want to lose a ton of money doing the right thing for the company, because you got to put precedent for that over yourself. When
you met your fiance or anybody, any walk of life, when somebody says like, what do you do? What do you do for a living? How do you answer that question?
I've had a variety, and it kind of depends on like the feel I'm getting from the person.
Yeah.
I'm either a sports writer or a fantasy sports writer. And then if they ask a follow-up, I go into it. Usually sports writer with like someone who absolutely does not understand.
Oh, who do you write for? Well, and then that's a whole thing. Yeah. You got to kind of feel them out.
Exactly. And then I got to explain like, look, I've got in my living room this like recording studio. It's a whole thing. It's hard to make them understand.
Wait, so you gamble for a living? You're a gambler? Well, I mean, skill. It's a game of skill. It's a whole conversation. I usually start with, have you ever seen commercials for FanDuel or DraftKings? That's usually my lead in for that.
Yes, that's my exact lead in almost 95% of the time, I would say.
Yeah, and was that an issue with people? Was that an issue with your fiance? I know, and if you're winning, just as long as you keep pointing to the scoreboard and it's paying the bills, it's all good, I suppose. But just I imagine some people would have issues with it. Some people wouldn't. Is that an issue? And also, what about like making lineups and lock, and like how does that affect dinner plans and date night and things like that?
So yeah, we have to specify certain nights where I'm either not going to look at my phone or not make lineups, and they're very rare. My fiance is very understanding, but like if her family's in town and I'm looking at my phone, like I'm not going to have a good time. I think that's pretty much how it goes. But she goes to bed really early So for KBO, it's kind of been perfect that I can make the lineups like late after she goes to bed. I kind of wish the MLB would be playing at like 2 a.m. It would be very great for my schedule. But, on nights where it's basketball, baseball, it's a little bit harder, but still, she's really understanding, which is the reason we've stayed together.
If there's like an 8 o'clock late swap or late scratch or something like that in basketball, all of a sudden you're like, you got to sneak off to the bathroom or something, like that kind of thing?
Oh, so her family must think that I have IBS or something. Because of when we go to dinner, I am, my stomach. And then boom, I'm in the bathroom, adjusting DraftKings because I saw, a notification come across that such and such is not starting.
Yeah, hey, these things it's worth it for them to think you have IBS if it's going to all of a sudden, change your teams drastically and you go from a negative night to a positive night. I suppose it's a fair trade-off, I imagine. As far as your DFS track, you moved on to, let's just kind of get where you are today at DailyRoto. How did we get here?
So Fantasy Draft did not continue my contract after like 2.5 years, which is honestly longer than I thought I would make. So I linked up with industry buddy Josh Kalachi for a while with RotoCurve. I was very appreciative of what they did for me. But at some point it came to, DailyRoto was looking to expand. I got a direct message from Drew Dinkmeyer and Mike Leone, who basically made
humble brag.
Well, I had already been with Roto Experts for a while, so they had worked with me. And I actually asked them to stay when I left for Fantasy Draft, but at that point I was just a part-time guy, whatever. Fast forward to whatever it was, a bunch of wins later, and I actually was wanted in the daily fantasy industry. It was nice, and they basically made me a Godfather offer that I couldn't refuse. So ended up there, and I've been with DailyRoto ever since.
Biggest win, biggest sweat.
So my biggest win was the opposite of my biggest sweat. I had 100K night in basketball last year, and I was winning by about 15 points the entire time. And I think it was a 5-game slate, and the last game was a Nuggets game where a bunch of people had Nuggets, and both Paul Millsap and Gary Harris were the two guys on my tail. They both got injured in the first quarter. So
did you fist pump? Did you celebrate, or what did you you feel guilty about that, or what you conflicted?
Because I thought I was the favorite going into the last game, but I couldn't take the pressure. So my building has a gym, and I went to work out. So I was just kind of following along while working out and trying not to sweat it too much. And I got texts saying that they had been hurt, and it was just like a sigh of relief. It wasn't like a celebration. I would tell you if I celebrated. Like, I'm not afraid to admit that sort of stuff because it's like
nobody wants to be that guy.
I know, and I have been that guy in the past. In this instance, I wasn't, because I was just trying to ease my nerves as is. So I was already relaxed. And I was like, phew.
You win 100K. You're about to win 100K. Do you wake up the fiance? Is she sleeping? Do you let her know what's going on? Do you let her sweat with you? It's whatever sweat it may be.
Yeah, so she's usually asleep for the sweats, but when we're close to like a big number, I'll wake her up and she'll understand. But I got to make sure that I have a legitimate chance. Like, if I woke her up and all of a sudden it was like a 3K night, she would kill me. So, so we got to be like approaching the finish line. That's why I like Sunday baseball sweats. She's like awake for it, which is very rare. And there was actually, the one I can recall is our building had a fire alarm in the final at bat of the early slate when Paul Goldschmidt was up in the final inning with a chance to beat me. And as he gets up, a fire alarm goes out. So I was sitting there looking out our window, seeing if there was smoke, debating if I was going to leave the building or go down in flames, watching the final Goldschmidt at bat. And she's finally like, "You've got to get out of here." We're like, fine. So we're running down the stairs following this Goldschmidt at bat.
And how did it turn out?
He got out. So I actually ended up winning that tournament. So that's the one I can recall where she was actually awake for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was reading, I was jumping in your tweets, and I read, let's see, I once showed up to a live final in an Ed Hardy hoodie, and you showed off something that looked similar to that. First of all, what year is this? I guess are you still rocking the Ed Hardy? And secondly, what live final is this, and how'd you finish?
So this was actually one that I went with to a live final. I was invited as a RotoCurve guest.
Okay.
And so I overstated it a little. I brought it with and didn't realize I had it. I didn't end up wearing it, at least not to any of those sponsored events. I think I wore it to dinner with the RotoCurve guys, and then I realized that I had brought that jacket, and I don't even know why I did. and I ended up throwing it out later. So I officially have no Ed Hardy stuff. My mom worked at Nordstrom throughout the course of my college career, so she would always buy it for me, and I would always tell her, like, I actually hate this. But the Ed Hardy stuff would keep coming, and I'm like not someone who likes to shop for myself. So if it's in my closet, like, I'm wearing it.
I thought fraternity guys are supposed to like Ed Hardy. Is that not a thing? The Venn diagram does not exist?
Okay, so a bunch of the guys liked Affliction, but very few guys liked Ed. I was always a laughing stock for that. Let's put it that way. Ed Hardy was like the line drawn for the fraternity guys. It was like any brand but that, you're fine.
Fair enough. I wasn't aware. I always thought of them as kind of a similar thing, but I guess I'm wrong. They're two different factions.
Yeah, so like Ed Hardy's, like some of them are like ridiculous, over the top. Affliction just has like crosses, and they're like things you would see like worn in like the Jersey Shore. I'd have to show you a sweatshirt to show you how ridiculous some of these Ed Hardy ones are. Like how over the top, crazy, like no one should be wearing this kind of thing.
I am intrigued. I definitely want to check it out for sure. Let's see. I have a lot of other. Well, you mentioned working out. Let's get to this. Let's the Peloton. It's you're rocking the Peloton apparently. Is that during the quarantine? Are you one of the few people that's actually getting in better shape during quarantine?
Yes, I've lost since February close to 20 pounds. So
wow.
Yeah, so the Peloton has been huge for me. I got Mike Leone into it, by the way. Shout out to Mike Leone.
You beat him apparently. I saw it in a tweet as well. You crushed him. You guys are having competitions against each other?
Yeah, you can like stream video. So we can talk to each other even though he hasn't figured out his audio yet. So I just hear like his kids screaming in the background and can't hear him.
Nice.
But yeah, we've had these races, and I don't know if you follow Barstool, but they have this like biker gang now. It's called the Buns of Anarchy. I always follow along with.
I'm not aware of that, but that's a nice pun.
Oh, it's really funny. They started a Peloton biker gang, and they have like races that like if you compete in them, you can win free t-shirts, and like Booger McFarland's in it. There's actually a bunch of like verified dudes in it, a bunch of like sports writers you would know. Like I think Jeff Schwartz is one of them. So I just like to be in these races and like compete with these dudes. And yeah, I mean it has been good for my mental health, because I think I would be going crazy just sitting in here without a gym. And so just having the ability to go to a gym, like our gym in my building is closed.
Mine too.
Has been a game changer. Yeah.
Does Booger McFarland's Peloton look like the Boogermobile? Is it a specially built Peloton?
All I can tell you is the metrics on Peloton are so messed up. Like it goes by weight. And I have beat Booger, and I think it was Damian Woody. We did the Last Dance ride. It was like an ESPN sponsored ride. And I killed him in every metric. And because he weighs more, he had like 250 calories burned more than I did. And I didn't see how that was physically possible.
Sell me on it and why it's a game changer, because it's like $100,000, $2,000. It's a big investment, isn't it?
So you can pay it 0% per month. So you can pay $100 a month, basically. So it doesn't feel so bad. It depends on how much you get in the warranty. It itself is like $2,300. Mm-hmm. But if you pay $100 a month, it just feels like you're making a bigger car payment or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you could take classes, you can compete against people, and it's not just like bike classes. Like on the bike, they have like workout classes where you can put weights on the back, and you can like sit on the bike and do arms and things like that. You can do recovery classes, you can do yoga. So I mean, is it worth that money? You would have to decide that. There are some knockoffs that are, better values. But for me, just to have like this very functional, and it's tiny, by the way. I don't know how the competitors are, but you can fit it in like a corner of any room. Like we have a 900 square foot apartment with no room, and it fit fine.
Okay, yeah, that was one of my concerns as well, too. I was curious about that. And I have like a 500 square foot apartment here in downtown Nashville. And not a lot of space, obviously, to go around. But yeah, it's one of those things that's worth it if you use it, right? It's worth it if you use it, and you're using it, and the results show as well too. So congratulations on that. Do we have like a goal weight, or just going to knock it out and keep going and see where it takes you?
We want to be skinny by the wedding. I don't really care about the weight because I'd like to put muscle back on after this is over, but we'd like to be skinny. So once we like how we look, that'll be we'll have hit the goal. When that is, maybe never.
Do we have a wedding date, or is that kind of thrown off with the quarantine?
So that was
is this a rough question?
No. We're basically in the process of officially making the decision to push it back to September of next year.
Yeah.
Basically, it was going to be in Michigan, where she's from, later this year, and we just don't know if the rules are going to be like, can you have gatherings that big? So we feel like the safe way to do it is to push it back, but we need our grandmothers to make it till then. We felt confident this year with their age. We're not sure next year, so that was the only our main concern, more than like the date, was like, who can everyone be there? But like, I don't want people to be wearing masks. She certainly doesn't want people to be wearing masks. We'd rather it just be normal or feel normal and be later.
Yeah, I mean that's the other part of it, is like, even if things are lessened, I suppose, as far as restrictions, are people going to show up? And people would. It's also a great excuse. Like, not that people don't want to go to your wedding, of course, but sometimes people are looking for an excuse to get out of a wedding. It's like, oh, I would, but the whole pandemic thing, I'd be all over it. But it's a great built-in excuse to get out of a wedding, I suppose. But
I was just waiting for that return card from Drew Dinkmeyer with those exact words, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem legitimate, I guess, but yeah, it's a great legitimate excuse, I suppose, to get out of it. But hopefully it'll be all good next year. I guess we're talking about 16 months or so. It's plenty of time down the road. Michigan, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, her dad's country club, so we got a deal there. Got to take it.
You know a guy.
We know a guy.
Twitter, I know you from Twitter, and I'm always, you don't really seem to get into it when I mix it up a lot of people. And I'm always curious, what's like the meanest tweet? What's the meanest tweet you ever got on Twitter? Like, maybe based upon your content, like, oh, I can't believe you picked so-and-so, he's stunk. And, you're like, hey, sample size and variance and yada, yada, yada. Is there any way it's ever like, is there one that kind of sticks out for you as like the meanest tweet you ever got?
So not the single meanest, but there was a meanest guy. There was a troll I had at RotoCurve who absolutely hated me. Mm-hmm. Who basically, anytime my article came out, would say, like, I know who I'm fading tonight. And it was weird because it was during a stretch where, like, I actually had some pretty good results. There were some bad nights along the way, but I was a tournament player. These were my tournament plays. And so, sure, maybe it failed, 4 nights out of 5, and then I had a big night. And he would only comment on, like, the fact that, like, even though I was up a ton for the week, it was like the other nights, when my article would come out, he'd be like, I know who my fades are tonight. Like, this guy sucks. Why do you have him employed? And like every time my article came out, probably 30 tweets in a month, with my articles, he would always be tweeting at me. So I would look at my mentions, and as soon as he tweeted, I'd be like, oh, RotoCurve must have released my article because I know this guy says I suck today.
I notice from my whenever people come at you like that, is just, I always say, okay, is this me or is this everybody? And I always look at, let's see their last 10 tweets or their last 20 tweets.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, it's like it's consistently, okay, this person just goes at everybody, which it makes you feel a little better. It's like, okay.
Not this guy. This guy was just for me, by the way.
Just isolated.
Yeah.
He was the exception to the rule. That's amazing. Hey, you're only as good as your last at bat. You're only as good as your last article. And if you put up one bad article, all of a sudden, you're the worst, I suppose. Chicago guy, talk to me about the Jordan documentary. Did you enjoy that? I assume you did.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little kid when this happened. In 1998, I was 10 years old. So, like, I remember where I was when he hit that shot against Brian Russell. I don't remember any of the other context. So this was kind of like living the glory days for me that I, like, knew happened but didn't really know the details. So for me, it was the best, 10 hours of TV that I've watched all quarantine with all the context of the Rodman thing in Vegas. I didn't know all the Michael Jordan, like, spite things that he got into. I didn't know. I remember Jerry Krause, like, my dad speaking ill of him. I didn't remember all the context with him. So it was really informative and entertaining at the same time. I could just tell you, every one of my friends, we had, text chains with the different groups when The Last Dance was on, because we're all like, oh, I didn't remember that. I didn't remember this. It was like, the South Park member berries, except we all forgot.
You can't besmirch your dad. I hope he's not besmirching Jerry Krause's dancing ability. Let's just at least give him that. He's a hell of a dancer, right?
Yeah, no, I don't remember him ever saying anything negatively about the dance moves specifically. But also, if you watch my dad's dance moves, he can't speak ill of anyone else's.
Well, there you go. Those in glass houses. Yeah, so it's wild to think about it because, like, Rodman going on, like, wrestling NWO, like, the in between games. Like, imagine that in 2020 with social media. And I understand they dealt with Rodman a different way. And, like, you got the best out of him, like, treating him, you can't treat everybody exactly the same. But I just can't help but think, like, imagine this happening in 2020 and just social media and everybody having a camera phone. And I don't know, it's just sort of wild to take it all in. And did you have, like, a favorite moment? Because I think what Michael Jordan has given the basketball Michael Jordan is also given the gifts. The gifts are amazing.
Yes, I think the social media was probably better than the show. I mean, the Michael Jordan looking at the iPad, I haven't even given it a shot because everyone else has done it so well on Twitter, and I don't want to be like the guy who's like way behind with the memes. I'm just enjoying everyone else taking advantage of that to the absolute max. I've thought the Michael Jordan headphones one has been kind of overplayed. I haven't found that one as funny as the other ones. I'm just going to be honest, but the Michael Jordan looking at the iPad ones and like the faces he makes, that was probably the best part of the whole show, both in terms of memeage and just content of him looking at what people had to say.
Yeah, when Gary Payton was talking about locking up Michael Jordan, that was my favorite part. And I mean, again, I want Netflix to do a show of just Jordan watching stuff, just reacting, his own, like Jordan doing his own reaction channel. I'm in on that.
Like that Viceland show where what's his name, the rapper, watches Ancient Aliens. Just give Jordan a show where he just watches things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is that Action Jackson or he's got a cooking
Action
show?
Bronson.
Action Bronson.
That's
is that the guy? Okay, yeah, I know he does cooking. He has more than one show on Vice. So I'm not sure. I just watched that whole wrestling series. So I got to Beyond the Mat. No, not Beyond the Mat. What's it called? The Dark Side of the Ring.
Yes, I actually have watched that. A bunch of those. Those have been really
sad,
good.
Very sad, but like well done.
Yeah, but Action Bronson has a show where he watches Ancient Aliens with like dudes who come on and like smoke with him. It's bad TV, but it's entertaining.
College you definitely love that show.
Yes, college me would have been entertained. Me now just has to change the channel.
It's geared toward a certain audience. One last thing on the documentary. Explain the pizza thing to me because it doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense to me.
I can't. I mean, I think we were debating this in the DailyRoto like side chat. Like we think he's overselling it. We're not sure what to make of it. Like there was like a pizza hit squad or something is what like we're supposed to be sold happened. And I don't buy it. I think he was just sick.
Or hungover.
Yes. That's another theory is that I don't know. I mean, up all night puking makes sense with the hungover theory, but I don't know what to make of that.
You're Michael Jordan. You're in Utah. You're hungry. It's 10 o'clock at night, right? You want to order a pizza. I guess he's got a guy that orders a pizza for him. He's got a personal dude.
Yeah.
Does this guy say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm ordering on behalf of Michael Jordan? Like, because somehow these people, if 5 people show up, 5 deliver, I've ordered food plenty of times. I'm sure you have as well. And 5 people never show up. It's just one person. If 5 people show up, the assumption here is that some of them are tipped off it was Jordan, but you don't say, like, what? They're like, listen, we're closed. Like, wait a second. This pizza's from Michael Jordan. You better open up now. Like, okay, now everybody's going to come over. How do they know it's for Jordan? Like, this is my question. I'm playing amateur armchair detective. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't check out.
Yeah, I do question what he said on the phone call. Like, we're here with the bowls, like, deliver it to the room where number 23 is in. Like, what? I don't know.
It doesn't check out for me. Speaking of pizza, we're on pizza right now, and I don't know if you're making a joke here or not. You're talking about the 5 jobs you previously had, and you're talking about takeout specialist at Lou Malnati's, which of course is classic. And now, does that mean you're just taking out a lot of pizza and you're making a joke, or you actually work the takeout register?
No, I actually worked the takeout. That was like my first job in high school was Lou Malnati's, who anyone who's been to Chicago, if you haven't been introduced, that's sacrilegious. I mean, that's our pizza, which you can argue whether it's pizza or not, but it's incredible. And yeah, my first job was answering phones and basically, working the takeout section where I try to get all my friends deals who came in. And I mean, it was a hopping place. So yeah, that is not a joke. I was actually once worked with pizza. They tried to have me flip a pizza. I threw it on the floor, and they relegated me to takeout.
Yeah, well, rightfully so. I'm learning in high school you weren't clutch. You couldn't flip pizzas. You couldn't hit baseballs. You didn't peak at like 16, unfortunately.
No, I will tell everyone that. Yeah, no. And anyone who knows me knows that's true, that high school Ricky was nothing like college Ricky, where he actually did peak.
So it's a chain, though. Isn't Lomati's kind of sort of a chain, like a local Chicago chain? And like, is that the best? That's the go-to? Like, if you're going to power rank, and I know the whole New York pizza versus Chicago pizza is a big argument that'll never end. And you could just like them both, I suppose, but that's no fun.
Yeah.
Like, Jordan or LeBron, pick one. You can't like the other one. So I assume Chicago pizza is your favorite pizza over New York and everywhere else. And Lou Malnati's, if I'm visiting Chicago, that's the place I got to go. That's the first stop.
So I am personally, yes. So Chicago over New York for me. Visited New York, had the fold over pizza. not going to speak ill of it. I just don't think it's quite as good or as plentiful. And for someone who eats a lot like I do, the quantity is as important as the quality. But Giordano's is my favorite in Chicago, mostly because I worked at Lou Malnati's for many years and would eat it so much that I was so accustomed to it. It's better as like a shock your system out of town kind of person, but either one of those would be completely fine and would be the ones that I would show the out of towners. Yes.
You worked as an umpire. Did you ever get into a fight with a coach, with a player? Anything you remember? Like you got into a spat? Or was it just kids? Was it high school kids? Who were your umpiring?
So because my dad was involved with the Park District, I became a fill-in umpire. I like missed the deadline. And so for a summer when like someone was sick last second, they'd call me. So because I was a backup and people knew I was a backup, I didn't get that much crap. I did have parents yell at me a few times. I never had to throw anyone out though, mostly because like I'm laid back and like I would hear them yelling at me. I'd just be like, nah, whatever. There were things that were said that I certainly could have thrown them out for, but they got the right umpire. Let's put it that way.
Let's hit up some of your favorites. Do you have a favorite athlete of all time?
Mine's strange, but Mark Pryor was my guy. He had like one good season, but like as a kid, I was obsessed with him. My room was like all Mark Pryor stuff. I had Mark Pryor cards, multiple Mark Pryor jerseys, and I loved that 2003 Cubs team that I still think was the best team.
Hey, one of my favorite teams of all time, the 2003 Marlins.
Yeah.
Could you forgive the whole Bartman thing? It was, first of all, Moises Alou completely overreacted. He escalated that whole situation. Can we talk about this first? I didn't realize this, but yeah, let's have it out because I was a Marlins fan. I was watching the game live with my Marlins friends, and I'm like, I remember watching Alou like throwing his glove and like throwing a little bit like a fit, like in the crowd. It's like, what do you just relax, man? You're up like what was it 3-0, 4-0, whatever it was at the time, and you need 5 more outs or 6 more outs, whatever it was. And I was like, this is the spark. And like all of a sudden, the floodgates open. And if you're going to blame anybody, blame Alex Gonzalez. He blew the table, the double play right in his glove. He would have ended the inning. And then like 7 more runs later. You tell me about Bartman.
Oh, I've always been on team blame Alex Gonzalez. And I didn't understand the Bartman thing. Like he was a fan who was there. And how many times, like if you're sitting on the edge, your instinct would be if a ball was near you to reach over also. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't think I was always like he got run out of town. If I recall, he moved to Florida. He like had to go by an alias for a while. Bartman
he never spoke about it to my knowledge. Like he's so scarred by it. And like there was even a Forgiving Bartman documentary, the 30 for 30. He wasn't on that. But yeah, I think it's ruined his life.
Yeah, that was insane. That was a bad look from Cubs fans and Chicago fans in general. That was a bad look.
St. Louis fans would never do that because that's the best fans in the world. That's my understanding are in St. Louis. Do you hold? Is it Dusty Baker's fault? Is Dusty Baker responsible for the demise of Mark Pryor?
I think he's responsible for the demise of a bunch of pitchers. Yes, Dusty Baker is a leave guys in until they are done sort of guy. But I mean, Pryor had some fluke injuries. I think he ran into Marcus Giles at second base, which is one of them, which was a fluke. I blame him more for Kerry Wood than I do for Mark Pryor.
In game, your favorite sporting event you attended live?
So this is weird saying this is an Indiana fan, but the most momentous game I went to was my dad went to Illinois, and we went to that Illinois-North Carolina championship. I think it was 2004 when it was Darren Williams, James Augustine, I think was on that team against like Raymond Felton, Sean May, Rashad McCants, Marvin Williams. And we sat like 7th row in a championship with the Illinois fan section. That was the most memorable sports memory I have. Otherwise, it's been a bunch. I mean, like I went to a Blackhawks championship game, but I'm just not fully appreciative of hockey being a baseball, basketball, football guy. So I think it was that championship, but I don't really have like too many, memories of going to games that like I will never forget.
You mentioned food, maybe a favorite food. And I found this kind of interesting as well, too. Yourself and your fiance, you've been to 40 different restaurants that were featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. You're calling it your 40th anniversary. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get away with that. But I mean, are they that close? Are you making like trips around the country to hit them all up? You're kind of mapping this out. Like I imagine they're all over the country. I don't know.
Yeah, they're all over the country. Part of my bucket list is to sit courtside at every NBA stadium. So when we get long weekends, we travel across the country. And when we go there, we go to diner, drive-ins, and dives. And like my dad has a conference every year that we do as a family trip. So when we're there, it's all over the country. We go to diners, drive-ins, dives. But yeah, so we've made trips. We sat we did New Orleans, we've done Indiana, we've done Milwaukee, we've done a bunch. We're at like 7 or 8 right now. I don't want to waste your time listing all of them. But
is there one that just kind of stands out for you? Is one that like you can put your stamp of approval on, or one that Guy Fieri just sent an off day and he's like, you know what, maybe he steers in the wrong direction. He's basically legit every time.
Okay, so there's one in Boston called Cafe Bologna, which is like a Polish place. Pierogies. I'm trying to think what else they had. All kinds of soups. That was incredible. I mean, I'm not really accustomed to like Polish food. They had potato pancakes as well, and the food there, I keep saying, like blew me away. Not having that genre before. If you're ever there and you haven't tried pierogies, at least like really authentic ones. I think it's like South Boston, Cafe Bologna.
All right. Well, we'll definitely yelp it after the show. But I've been to Boston. I didn't go there. I guess I missed out, I suppose.
It's like slightly outside the city, but it was so good.
And you said how many arenas have you now been to as far as courtside, as far as your bucket list?
I think we're at 8 for courtside.
What's the funniest thing you've heard? I've never sat. I've sat like 4 or 5 rows up. I don't know how close you get, if you get the first row or second row or third row. What's the funniest thing you heard? Like the most interesting trash talk you've heard that you can recall? You can hear him talking, right?
Yeah. So we were at a game where Frank Vogel was talking to the ref, and I remember being shocked at what he was saying, like telling him he was out of position and you need to be in a better position to make that call. But he was saying it so he wasn't yelling. He was just like talking to the guy, and the guy wasn't reacting. But it was something where if he was yelling it, I felt like, whoa, he would have gotten tossed for this. But because he was like nicely saying like, you blew this call, you should have been there, I don't know how you made that, there was no reaction at all from the ref. So that off the top of my head is the craziest thing I can remember.
Maybe it was a new ref. Is that possible? I don't know. Probably
no. I think it was it Danny Crawford?
You can't get away with that with Joey Crawford. Joey Crawford will throw you out.
Right. I think it was Danny Crawford, who's like one of the nicest refs in the entire league, by the way. Like he's a Chicago guy. Like my dad's friends know him, so he's got a rep for just being insanely nice. So it made sense that like if you approach him like that, he's not going to do anything.
Are you binge watching anything during the quarantine? You have a favorite TV show that like you like historically, something that just kind of popped up out of nowhere that you're watching now? Hit up the old Netflix and the Amazon, the whole deal, or what are we watching?
So I'm on season 5 of Boardwalk Empire, which I missed the first time around, and that is a damn good show. I will say season 5 has been kind of confusing because they like flash forward and you got to figure out everything that happened. But if you haven't watched Boardwalk Empire and you're a Martin Scorsese fan at all, or even like a Steve Buscemi fan, it's some of the best TV you'll watch. It's just a different era that you're not accustomed to. And we just started this show, White Lines, on Netflix. I don't know if you've watched this yet.
I've seen it recommended, but I haven't clicked on it just yet. But I can vouch for Boardwalk Empire. Nookie Thompson, it's yes. Awesome. It's one of those shows that, like, for whatever reason, kind of gets lost in the conversation. Like most people don't talk about it, but it's really well done. I agree. But tell me about White Lines.
Well, we're 2 episodes in and we're hooked. The fiance and I. It's in Ibiza, first of all, and it's the director from Money Heist. If you've watched that, I
haven't seen it, but I heard it's good. Should I put that on the list as well?
So Money Heist, if you're fine reading, subtitles the whole time, sort of like Narcos, it's really in depth. It's like levels upon levels. It's like the inception of a TV show, which kind of makes it good. And so this specific director, I don't even remember his name. We're kind of watching this show where there's obviously White Lines, cocaine is involved. The main character's brother has died, and they're trying to figure out how, and he was involved with like the cocaine trade. That's the summary.
It's as far as the shows, like some shows you have to pay attention to. In some shows you can like multitask you and do different things. I imagine you're talking about the shows that you have to actually just close the laptop and actually pay attention and read the TV. You can't get away with it.
Subtitle shows you can't multitask. I've done that so many times while I've been working, and I had to go back like 3 episodes. I realized I missed the entire thing during the whole day.
Who's this guy? Where did he come from?
Exactly.
You have a favorite movie?
Favorite movie. Mine has always been basketball. I'm a like stupid humor kind of guy. And I know that's like an out there pick. Like I feel like Happy Gilmore, even in that genre, is probably more the go-to. But in terms of like good movies, I love Django, by the way. I will watch that anytime it's on. It was Goodfellas for a while, but I feel like that's too cliche to say like Goodfellas or Scarface or something like that. I like mob movies and I like stupid humor. So anything that fits that bill, you can consider my favorite.
That checks out with a tweet you had. Describe your favorite movie in 3 words. I think you said like they play basketball or they invent basketball or something like that. So yeah, that does check out. And yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Django. We the previous episode, I know this doesn't make any sense, but again, there's no real sports going on. Not a lot of real sports going on. The previous episode of the Morning Grind podcast that we're on right now, we debated Leonardo DiCaprio's best movies. And we ranked him in the top 20. And coming soon to a Twitter near you, we're going to have some polls out there. And Django is probably my favorite too. And it's not like mine necessarily was consensus. It was me and multiple people, kind of having the conversation. But I don't know if that's a Leo movie per se. It's more of a Jamie Foxx movie, more of a Tarantino movie. But I love Django too. I think it's an amazing movie as well.
Can I just say, the one thing I didn't like about that movie is the Rick Ross song in the middle of it. I just didn't feel like it fit the genre.
If Tarantino is really good with his music, but that's fair. It's a fair criticism. It just didn't make sense, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, like, I like rap songs in movies when they fit. I just didn't feel like a movie from that era should have been there. That was the only thing that drives me crazy about that movie.
You like, speaking of songs, speaking of music, you like reggae. Sell me on reggae. I am completely like indifferent to it. I know nothing. I mean, I'll hear it. I'll like, okay, that's fine. And I hate to sound I don't know what the word is, negative. I just, a lot of it sounds redundant to me. Maybe I'm just naive and I don't know it very well. So how do we find reggae? And I imagine, again, this all sort of correlates with 20-year-old shenanigans, possibly, maybe.
So that's where it started, no question. But like 311 was a band that I had always liked, who had like, they were, mainstream rock, but they had their reggae undertones. And that kind of got me into, in college, some other reggae bands. And like classic reggae, like Bob Marley, it's the same, strings over and over. But I think modern reggae takes that to kind of a different level, where there are guitar solos and things like that, where it's not just like, every little thing's going to be all right. And it's that beat throughout the whole thing. It's just good vibes. It's just a way to stay positive, I think, more than other genres. Any other genre, like hard rock, usually has some like angry undertones. I mean, there's like whiny rock, which has some sad undertones, and reggae is just almost always happy. So as someone who likes to stay happy, just having that sort of music, it does my mental health well. And I will say there's a reggae bar in Chicago that if you ever come visit, I will take you there. And I think that will change your mind single-handedly. It's my favorite place on earth. I'm
open-minded to it. I don't dislike it. It's just not something I listen to. Like, it's not something I fire up. But like, if I wander into it, it's like, yeah, this is good. I'm fine with this.
Yeah,
you're taking me back with 311. Omaha, Grassroots, Essay,
yes.
Nick Hexum. I was all into that stuff back in the day. I don't know if their new stuff is going on. I imagine they're still a thing. I think
they're still a thing, and their new album is very good, by the way. Good all feeling. Right. Try that song out.
All right, we'll check it out. You wrote content for Survivor. I love Survivor. Survivor's great. I didn't really play the Survivor FanDuel game for whatever reason. I don't really know why. I was just kind of like, I just basically unplugged from DFS because I just, for a month and a half, whatever it was. But is Tony the greatest Survivor player of all time? How did they not vote him out? What happened there? They blew it.
They completely blew it. I don't know why people didn't realize, like, during the middle that this guy was the strongest contestant, but somehow he always convinced certain groups of people that he was on their side and would be voting their way. I think the answer is yes. So just to be completely honest, I missed the first 39 seasons of Survivor. And I came in here. Yeah. Although I did have my friend fill me in about, like, the backstories of a bunch of these guys. If I was writing daily fantasy, I wanted to at least have an idea. But the way Tony got through this season, I don't understand. Like, if you remember early in the season, Yule like tried to be sneaky and boom, they voted him out. And Tony did that every episode, and people would talk about, like, I know Tony's being sneaky, and for some reason he wasn't on the radar. So just that fact alone, just how good he was socially, kind of makes me jealous. I wish I could talk to people like that and get them on my side, especially the guy who used to troll me.
He would have voted to give you a couple $1,000,000 for sure. But yeah, I think, do you have any interest now in going back and watch all like the previous? There's so much content there, and I imagine you can find it on some platform, maybe CBS.com. I don't know. You probably can watch the previous 39 seasons somewhere. Which, I'm not a big reality show guy, but I just like the whole concept, and I think it's a really clever sort of like all the gamesmanship and just the different ways it can go. I think it's a fun watch.
Yeah, I definitely have interest in watching future seasons if there are, and maybe a season or two of the winner that I liked. I don't know if I would go back and watch 40 seasons of Survivor when there's so much other stuff. Yeah.
It's a big commitment. You can just sort of pick and choose, I suppose, your favorite seasons. If you weren't working in DFS today or in the sports world, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think I would be in the restaurant business. We talked about the diner, drive, and dive thing. I think that I would be in food if I wasn't in sports. I mean, if I wasn't DFS and you still allowed me to be in the sporting industry, I would have tried, management, things like that. But I still remember back from my college days when I took Sport Management 101, and they basically said, like, out of college or even 5 years, if you expect to be making, 100,000, you're crazy. 25 grand is the starting pay. You got to really grind it out. And I just had friends that had like a bad experience. So I don't think I would have had it in me to grind out, 80-hour weeks, without paid overtime. I would have gone to the restaurant business, done something with food.
Yeah, man. I mean, I worked in the restaurant business as well too. One thing I noticed at some point is like you don't see a lot of old managers. That job just beats you up, man. I mean, that job, like you said, the hours, they're working 60, 70 hours sometimes a week, and it's a rough business, but it's fun too. I enjoyed my moments there, but I also wanted to move on. But yeah, as far as and being the owning side, of course, I was just a server making smart ass comments to people. I would bet. I mean, of course, I got to stay on brand. We would bet like the next couple coming in is are we gonna have an odd number of people, an even number of people, and I would buy and sell tips. Just how's your table going, and what's the bill at? This is the things I would do to keep my sanity as I was waiting tables. I just got a flashback. I don't know why. This is not about me. This is about you. Pick one of these two. You tweeted about liking them both. Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. You got to pick one.
Breaking Bad, not close, in my opinion. I complained for at least 3 seasons that Better Call Saul was a lot of buildup and not enough action when it came to the climax. I will say season 4 and 5 have been better, especially 5, but Breaking Bad was just awesome. Once you got past like the first 3 episodes, it was nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, it's also hard for suspense because you kind of know what's going to happen,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that, but it's the ultimate slow burn. Like Better Call Saul is just like they can take a 1 second, throwaway line and turn that into like a 15-minute suspenseful scene. It's just so well done the way they shoot that. But if you're going to only pick one, I think you have to pick Breaking Bad amongst the two. But I did make the argument. I think that Vince Gilligan could have quite possibly maybe created the 2 best shows of this century so far. Can we argue that? Maybe? Maybe not.
2 best shows. I don't think I would put Better Call Saul as number 2.
Well, it's just saying it's in the conversation. I'm not saying I'm not making that argument. I think one could. You tell me what's better. Give me what's better. Something you already watched probably, or something that you already mentioned.
I think Ozark is better, just off the top of my head.
It's similar to Breaking Bad, right? Where just kind of like thing happens and it get progressively worse and worse and worse, and bad guy and normal guy, normal family, all of a sudden doing abnormal things. That's a really fun show, but just don't ask too many questions.
Yeah.
Favorite character in Ozark? You know this. It's all everybody's favorite character, right?
I think you're going to say the curly-haired.
It's Ruth, isn't it? Ruth?
Yes.
Well, is that what you're going to say?
I
don't want to answer for you.
I'm between her and Marty Bird. I'm partial to both.
All right, fair enough. I like to ask this one because you never really know what you're going to get, and I think I'm going to get a good answer here. We'll see. Do you have a random celebrity encounter?
A random celebrity encounter. Do we have a random celebrity encounter? I got to ask her. I don't remember the last one that I came across.
Yeah, well, you didn't miss you didn't run the Guy Fieri?
No, we haven't running into in public is bad too, because like I'm, I do have one. Actually, that's a really good call. The last one I had was we were out to dinner with my fiance's family, and when there was speculation about where Bryce Harper was going to go, he was in town playing the Cubs, and both he and Chris Bryant were at a booth right next to us having dinner with their wives. That was the encounter. So
the speculation was that Bryce Harper was going to be a Cub, and I thought he'd be a Cub too, because it's my understanding. Didn't he name his dog Wrigley?
Yes.
Isn't that it? That's all we need to know, isn't it?
Hold on, where is my dog? If you ever look at his Instagram, his dog looks exactly like mine too. It's sick. They look like they're clones. Griffin.
Why Griffin? Is it named after like Family Guy or something, or what?
It was actually named after Blake Griffin.
Okay.
Just because I like to do unique names, which didn't turn out to be so unique. There's another Griffin in this building, but I like to like base it off sports things or things I like. And I thought it was a good dog name. But once I saw there was another Griffin, I was actually disappointed. I wanted it to be, like the only name. Like my parents' dog's name is Ocho Cinco, and they call him Ocho.
That's funny, but because I know a lot of DFS guys. Eddie has a dog named Boban. Andy Means has a dog named Boogie. So I guess it's just a DFS thing, I suppose.
Those are good.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say Griffin is not like 1 or 2, because you definitely want to name that after Blake Griffin's last couple of years. So I'm gonna say Griffin is about 7 to 8 years old. Did I nail it?
He's 6 going on 7.
All right, yeah, well, close enough. Nobody's named their dog. I mean, Blake's fine. It was a good run. He's a funny dude as well too. If you ever see his comedy,
I was going to say his comedy is what you would name him after these days.
But nobody's naming their dog Griffin anymore. How is that? What you're getting out? You're walking the dog. Is that a process there? Is that a whole ordeal in the apartment in these current times?
No, not an ordeal at all. We have a dog park like a block away from us, so it's a really nice way to like just clear my head. And even if I only have like 10 minutes before I got like to get back to work, to just walk out there.
I've kept you long enough, Ricky. I think we had about the hour or so. I appreciate you for your time. I want to tell the people where they can find you on the Twitter machine, what you're doing out there in the DFS space, and anything else you want to say. Feel free, fire away.
All right, you could find me at rssandersdfs. You could find me at SportsGrid writing some betting articles on SportsGrid TV during the Daily Roto Hour, which airs at I think 4:30 a.m. At least my time. So if you're up late, you're grinding KBO, turn on the Fantasy Sports Network. You could find me at Daily Roto doing the DFS things, managing projections, writing articles. Go ahead and hop on our Slack chat, and I think that's good enough pitch for me. If you need me, you know where to find me at rssandersdfs.
Much appreciated. Thank you for your time. Once again, that was Ricky Sanders from Daily Roto. You've listened to The Morning Grind. I'm Dean. We're out of here. Holler.